Being a Muslim means sacrifice, whether that be your time, your money, and sometimes even your relationships. So today I tell you the story of Abu al-As ibn Rabi' and Zainab bint Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Our story actually begins before the coming of Islam, where Abu al-As came and asked the Prophet to marry his firstborn daughter Zainab. And the Prophet, when he conveyed the message to her, she blushed until her face became red, and she accepted. And the two were happily married, loving each other immensely and having two children, Ali and Umama. Then, in the blessed year of 610, Abu al-As was out on a trade expedition. Little did he know that the Prophet had received revelation and Islam had come. When he returned, Zainab greeted him and told him the great news of what her father, the Prophet ﷺ, had brought. But Abu al-As was loyal to his tribe and he couldn't accept. He asked her to be patient with him and excuse him, and she said, "I will stay with you until you accept the truth." The two stayed like this for years. And Abu al-As was an honorable man. He did not persecute the Muslims like others did. Yet still the persecution in Makkah grew so severe until the Muslims could not bear it. The hijrah had to happen. Zainab was torn. She did not know whether to go with her father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet saw this in her face, and as much as it hurt him to leave her, he told her to stay behind in Makkah. Things would run smoothly for a little while, but then the battle of Badr would occur, and tied to his tribe, Abu al-As was forced to go despite Zainab's cries. And of course, the Muslims were the victors at Badr, and Abu al-As was taken as a prisoner by his own father-in-law, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Zainab radiallahu anha, in her love for her husband, sent a piece of jewelry in order to pay his ransom so he could return. And when the Prophet opened the bag that had the ransom in it, he immediately began to weep. The companions, seeing the Prophet cry, asked, "Ya Rasulullah, why is it that you weep?" And the Prophet held up a necklace and said, "My daughter has sent the necklace of her mother Khadija as a ransom for her husband. So if you will allow, let me send him back to her with the necklace in hand." And the Sahaba agreed, saying, "Yes, Rasulullah, whatever you wish." However, before he could leave, the Prophet pulled him aside, telling him that revelation had come and that Muslims could no longer be married to non-Muslims, and that he should return Zainab to Medina. Zainab would rejoice when she saw her husband coming back with the necklace in hand. However, Abu al-As's face was glum, and he told her, "Your father has ordered that you return, so go back to him." When she returned to Medina, many people would tell her to remarry, but her heart would not allow it. Instead, she simply would make dua for Abu al-As. She knew he was a man of integrity and he could not stay away from Islam, and so she waited. Years would pass until just before the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet's companions would get into a small skirmish with a caravan, and right at the center of that caravan was none other than Abu al-As, once again brought back to Medina as a captive. However, he would escape, and he ran to the house of Zainab, asking for her to give him protection, and out of her love for him she would, telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Fajr, and the Prophet would honor her protection and return to the man all the items from his caravan. Once more, Zainab would plead with him, telling him to accept Islam so their family could be whole. However, Abu al-As said that he did not want people to say that he accepted Islam only because he was a captive, and beside that he had some debts to pay in Makkah. And so sadly she watched him leave once more. The moment Abu al-As got back to Makkah, he began to pay off his debts, repaying everyone until no one could say that he was indebted to them. And when that was done, he stood in the middle of Makkah, raised his finger and said, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah," and headed back to Medina. He would tell the Prophet that he had become Muslim and that he would like the Prophet to ask if Zainab would take him back. And so the Prophet would knock on her door once more, and her face would grow bright red, just like the day he first proposed. And so, after all those years, their family was finally whole.